Welcome to Business Class, a podcast for people wanting to upgrade their thinking, upgrade their learning, and upgrade their life. I'm your host, Eugenia Panterhos, founder of Business Class Collective, best-selling author and life coach. If you're an entrepreneur, a startup, or someone who dreams of reaching their full potential, then you're in the right place. You'll feel empowered and inspired to design the life you've always wanted. Let's do this. Hello and welcome back to the show. I hope you've had a wonderful week. I'm thrilled to be bringing you Jarryd Irvine from Actualise You, who'll be joining us on the show today. Jarryd, welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here. I'd like you to start by sharing a little bit of information about yourself.
Yeah, it's great to be here. So I'm from South Africa, on the other side of the world. I'm a husband, a multi-sport coach and athlete with a special interest in swimming and biomechanics. I would say I'm an extreme endurance athlete, so anything swim, bike or run, but give me some squats and push-ups to do and I'll go for it. I'm a mental health advocate, a business owner and human capital consultant. So I really began this journey as a young overweight boy that was pretty self-conscious and introverted, and I'd say I'm still introverted, but I have a bit of a handle on the self-consciousness. So I think that's a good way to summarize.
I think you're not alone. Your interest in fitness and sport has got you starting a business called Actualise You. It's about work, life and leisure. So how did you journey into that from your passion? Like you've got your new purpose. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so my business actually started as known as Actualise Wellness Solutions. But obviously through the process of learning about branding and things like that, Actualise You became a more foundational aspect of how to structure the business and with marketing and everything. It was a lot easier to say Actualise You than Actualise Wellness Solutions, and that's quite an interesting process if anyone ever wants to jump into the branding thing. But I was studying sports science and we did a module in second year called corporate wellness, and I was pretty intrigued by it because it was something that I'd always wanted to teach people how to improve their well-being, because I'd gone through the process of weighing like 84 kilograms as a 12-year-old, doing swimming training, getting fit and strong and healthy, and actually not really having much injuries and things, and trying to teach people how to do that. So I wanted to get involved in wellness programs in companies, which I still haven't done officially, but I've worked on like personal wellness programs with individuals. So that's really what Actualise Wellness Solutions did. We also ran swimming programs, and while I was doing that, I was a bit frustrated because I never got into doing the corporate wellness program. But what I realized is by working with children, you can actually teach them how to manage their well-being before they have to deal with the stresses of life. And so if they know, okay, I enjoy swimming, I have a better mental health week when I do swimming, and when I don't do swimming, then I'm not doing so good, or whatever type of sport it may be, then you can actually intercede before they have to go to university and start eating junk food and, to deal with their stress and that type of thing. So that's really where my business started and how I got involved in the individual coaching.
That's so interesting. So I agree. Starting when they're young and creating a mindset that will set them up for success in their health and well-being. So what sets you apart? So what's your point of differentiation in the way that you operate?
So my differentiation would be, I believe it's the fact that I deal with people and organizations personally and holistically. So, I had a guy say to me, oh no, he had spine surgery and he wants a training program, but something very basic. And I was like, well, you know, you might want something basic, but realistically with your situation, it is a complex matter, and it may be something that I'm not actually necessarily qualified to do. So in that sense, I would refer them to the correct people, and rather say I'm not the right person than say, oh well, I'll just figure it out as I go and then cause more damage in the end. And so I do believe that's one of the differentiating features that I can offer.
And that's a true personal service, because it's not about saying yes to everything that comes your way. It's recognizing that some people may need something else. It's more specific. So, and that's where the personal service comes into it. So how do you stay motivated? This is a question.
So I've tried to summarize it into three major things. So the first thing would be structural development in your life, and most of us perform really well when we have structure. Yes, it's frustrating and we may be rebellious at times and things like that, but the structural development really helps you prioritize things. And sometimes we get it wrong, and that's fine, but it helps you stay motivated in its deepest sense, because you have the structure and you're like, okay, I have a 7 o'clock meeting every day. Great. I have to be up for that. I have to make sure I'm dressed and ready. It might just be a video call, but that's fine because it keeps you going. And that was something that happened with the pandemic, where I was just going from back-to-back meetings, but having to drive around to places. So I would do 1,500 kilometers a week of driving. And then that's 2 to 4 hours per day. And it was just, I looked at pictures recently of the bags under my eyes from before COVID. And I was like, oh, I don't have those anymore. That's amazing. I didn't even know I had them. So structural development. And then, the next thing would be driven. So motivation is really driven by your why. So if you have a why, if you don't have a why, that's also great, because there's so many opportunities to find a why. And seek and you shall find is really the pivot, the most important thing in finding your why. If you haven't sought out everything you can do, and this comes from Jim Rohn, so he says, find out what you can do, and then from there everything will make its way. So if you're like, okay, I can do these 10 things, but you only enjoy doing 3 of them, then do those 3 things. Don't do 7 other things that you actually can do but don't enjoy. And then last thing is optimization. So basically, when you start learning a new skill, you're going to be highly motivated, highly driven to excel in it. And this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, or confidence wisdom curve. Basically, as soon as you start something, it's going to accelerate up really quickly in terms of how well you think you know it. And then as soon as you become more experienced past the sort of amateur level, then you realize, oh, I don't actually know so much. So that curve goes down, and your perception of how well you know something really goes down, and you're like, okay, I actually know nothing here. So I can't teach people about it because that I'm not going to achieve anything. But then as that wisdom and experience goes up, that ability to teach people and transform them through that is higher. And we can always improve our systems. So the 3 things is structural development, developing your why, and then optimization of all these things.
I like that. I like that very much. About the why, I remember my first employer saying, when you work out your why, you can work out the how. And I think that kind of ties into what you've just said. If you've got your compelling why, you'll find a way how to do it and work your way through it.
Was that a mentor?
Yeah, my first employer, I was very lucky to work with him because he was the type of person that had really big picture thinking. And he taught me a lot. He actually taught me a lot, inspired my interest in business. And I was only very young then. So, so it's amazing how we have these people that come into our life that do inspire us or give us that motivation, I suppose. I'm certain you've had some challenges and you've had some highs. What's been one of the biggest challenges that you've faced? I know you talked about your fitness as a young man and then developing into this business model, but in your business, have you had a particular challenge that's, kind of like stopped you in your steps and you're thinking, oh, how am I going to do this now?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was actually developing an appropriate structure, and then like also having struggling with conflict and team management. So when we had the swimming school, this was before COVID, then managing my team I think was good in general, but I did struggle. I sort of found coaches and people to assist through my network, and I don't think that was the best thing looking back, because they didn't necessarily have the skills and experience. So I taught them a lot, through what we were doing. But then as soon as they hit a comfort zone, they didn't share the vision that I had. And so they weren't willing to put in extra hours or like extra time to be able to help grow my business. They were too focused on building their own careers, which is fine because, at the end of the day, we all need our own direction. But having, there was a lady that I hired who was about 30 years older than myself and had been in the swimming industry for a long time. And she shared this value. So she was committed to helping me, and, not excessively, not without being paid appropriately and stuff. But she really helped drive that value experience. And so, yeah, that would have been one of the challenges. The other one is just general, I'd say general cash flow, but in hindsight, we've never had to take out a business loan or anything like that. So I think that is pretty good considering we've been going for 6 years. And like, yeah, there's been tough months where you don't know where things are going to come from, and then you get 2 or 3 sales before the end of the month. And then I think diversification has been pretty tough because everybody wants to do everything, and it's unrealistic to actually do that as a business. You need to focus on your core business, and then have a few add-ons on the side to do upsells and things like, or cross sells and things like that. But I don't think diversification is the best thing if you are trying to really build a business.
Yes, it's there's a quadrant that focuses on what your cash cow is, like what's going to bring the money in, what's going to keep the cash flow happening, and then you have other products or services that are more of a slow burn, consistent, or you might bring in a new product or a new service. But it's about knowing what's going to be coming in, what's the key service you're providing, and how that's going to help you with your cash flow. So I think it's a learning curve, isn't it? As an entrepreneur, you need to get that right. And it's trial and error, I suppose. You want to be able to please your clients and provide the right service for them.
The difficulty of being young, because I was 22 when I started this business. I was quite influenced by people, and so if people said, "Oh, you must do this," then I was like, "Okay, yeah, maybe I should do that." So I think saying yes is important, but it's actually important to be able to say no to stuff when you're starting out, because then you don't just bend and buckle to whatever's going on. And but those are only skills you learn by engaging in communication, and you don't want to cause conflict either. Like, we think that saying no is causing conflict, and it's actually the wrong way around. By being more agreeable, you actually cause more problems.
Yeah, I think you've got to take it back to your why. So you've got to ask yourself, is this aligned with my why, with my purpose? because you can say yes to lots of things, and as you said, they may not be in alignment with the best path forward or the best collaboration or the best outcome. You want to be able to protect your reputation and be known specifically for a certain thing, and getting that right means you need to be aligned with your why.
No, that's exactly right.
So who's your biggest inspiration?
My wife, first and foremost, I would say. She's a vet and a dance teacher, and she juggles things pretty well. Gets, top marks for all her exams and things. And I'm always like, maybe you can put a bit less pressure on yourself, because you're still going to get like 85 and maybe not the 90 that you wanted. But yeah, she always inspires me, and she pushes me. She encourages. So I think that's the biggest one. And like in sport, there's a guy named Ross Edgley, and he's a like extreme endurance athlete, and he swam around the Great Britain in 2018, along with a whole bunch of other things. But that took him like 157 days, and so he didn't touch land for 157 days, and would swim 6 hours, rest 6 hours, and repeat that every day. So big inspiration there. I don't want to do that for sure. I know I don't want to swim around Great Britain or around Africa or whatever, but just always good to have those inspiring people. And then business-wise, I think, so firstly, my mentor, my main mentor for Actualise, and she's also a co-director, is Birgit Smythe. She owns a tech company that does net cool solutions for using IBM. And so she's very cool and helped teach me how to set up a business and all of those things. So without her, I definitely wouldn't be here. And then Simon Sinek, he's quite a popular speaker. And then also Gary Vaynerchuk, he's also way up there. I enjoy hearing the concepts that they have to share, and so I don't know them personally, unfortunately, but we got to look up to people like that have made it, that have done the grinding and figured things out.
A pretty impressive business library too of mentors that I aspire to, strategies and philosophies, and I think we're so fortunate to have them, whether it's books or YouTube or Instagram or any other social media where you can get to see these people and learn from them. So is there a particular book that has inspired your thinking?
Yes. So I've got three to name. The first one is Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf. So that was brilliant. And it's also a practical book, so it makes you get down and write some things out and figure things out. The next one was What's Your Moonshot by John Sinai. That's just like for big picture thinking, like if you think, I think the analogy there was the 1969 moon landing. If that's your vision, like, then how do you get there, and going through that process of figuring it out. And I think, and I had a chat with an athlete as well, she said, she enjoys the process of building up to a race more than the actual race itself. And I think that's really true with most things. You've got a project to do or a presentation. It's the process that you go through. And then when you do it, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a bit anticlimactic, unfortunately. But, it's the process, who you become by doing it. And then the last book that I can share is Born to Run. I actually can't remember. I didn't make a note of the name. I can't remember who wrote it. But Born to Run is a really good book.
When did you realize that you were successful? Like, what were your benchmarks? Was it profit, customers, repeat customers, publications?
I wish it was profit, in the beginning stages, because the first 3 years, like I said earlier, we haven't had to take out a loan. We, cash flow was tough at times, so profit was really not one of our success factors. or it didn't, for me, it wasn't important. It was important that we could pay salaries, and it was important that we kept clients happy, but profit wasn't up there. But having customers consistently, on a monthly or annual basis, that's where I realized, okay, we're doing this and we're consistent, and that they bought into the vision. So when COVID happened, a lot of people, we, let's say, had 120 customers consistently, of which about 30 or 40% sort of stuck with us for the online program. So, I mean, we had to jump within a month to online programming. And most people were like, no, I'm not into that. And it's like, well, you don't really have a choice, but if your choice is what we're doing and nothing, then it's going to be better for us if you just do nothing, because I don't want someone paying me, whatever, like 500 Rand a month or 1,000 Rand a month and not bought into the vision that we're doing. So, I mean, we saw a massive, I think our income dropped by 80%, which is just huge. And we had to figure out how to make ends meet. The benefit I realized after that was that our expenses went down. So, so we made that compromise, and there was also the temporary, there was a temporary relief scheme from the government, so for small businesses. So we could apply for that. And I think, that's also when you put structurally things into place. My mentor said, we need to make sure that we're paying taxes, need to make sure that we are, doing a PAYE and all these, and UIF, unemployment insurance funding and things like that. And I was like, okay, sure. So we did it. And I actually didn't even realize that was part of the monthly thing that we were paying. I just paid it. I was like, okay, this is important, pay it. And then when we had to apply for that, I chatted to the accountants and they were like, no, you can, you can apply for it. You've been paying. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that, but great. I'm very thankful, and so I think success, I hope that answers the question, but success is more measured on what's important. So if you run a business and you can't keep customers happy, then either you got to close that business or you got to figure out how to get them to be happy with the product or service that you're offering. Being able to take in feedback is so hard. I mean, something that I struggled with was, like, I would send out surveys to customers, like, are you happy with X, Y, and Z? Do you send that to 120 people? You get like 4 responses, maybe. And you're like, okay, so now are people not happy, or are they just too busy and they keep paying and they keep coming? So then they must be happy if they keep coming back. I mean, so you sort of have to read between the lines as well.
Yeah. You're meeting their expectations, I would say, and they're quite happy and don't need to communicate much more. I remember reading an article years ago about being on an aeroplane. If you travel on an aeroplane and you land at the airport, your expectations being met. But if you got upgraded to first class and got served crêpe Suzette, then when you land, you're going to tell everyone about your journey because you got the crêpe Suzette, you were upgraded, right? So there's a story around it. So yeah, flying and landing meets expectation, but it's the other things that people start talking about when something else happens, like crêpe Suzette in first class.
I never thought about it like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So how do you celebrate your wins? So when I say celebrate, I don't mean like popping champagne or whatever, but is there someone that you just ring, or is there something that you do, a little routine that you have when you have your wins?
I don't have a structured routine. I definitely tell my wife when there's a win, but I also tell her when there's a loss. So and I think if it's like, someone signing up for a 2-year contract or something like that, then we'll definitely do a celebratory dinner or something to that extent, and make sure that, make sure that they're happy, and that we just acknowledge what's happened and know that it's going to change things for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice to mark the occasion some way, whether it's just through communication or perhaps going out to dinner. It just gives you that moment to pause and reflect, celebrate, and then prepare for the next cycle. Because otherwise it can just be a very long, dragged out process of work after deadline, more deadlines. And you look back and think, oh, there are things that you could have just said yay about, And I think that changes the mindset too,
Yeah, it definitely changes your mindset, and you lose joy over time if you don't celebrate, for sure.
Yeah, you've got to be chief happiness coach as well. Looking back, is there anything that you could have done sooner in your business?
Yeah, definitely. We could have started saving sooner. That was something I also only implemented after COVID happened, because I was like, okay, well, if this ever happens again, then I want to have a contingency plan. And it's something so small, and it's a minor discipline, but you just like, okay, save 5% of your monthly turnover, or it makes such a huge difference, because then you're like, oh, here's this unexpected expense. Okay, we can just take it out and pay it, or and it's the idea with savings is that you don't take it out, but it is also there as an emergency fund. So you need to be wise about when it's necessary to use it, or when you maybe need to just drive a few more sales in order to pay for that unexpected expense. But it's not always that simple to do unexpected or do a few extra sales. But yeah, so I think the saving thing would have definitely added value a lot sooner if I'd been more disciplined.
It's interesting. So often when you put a little bit of money aside, you don't actually miss it because you can live day to day without it. But when that accumulates, it's that nice surprise that you've actually got that little fund happening. And yeah, it's a very good strategy, and it's a really good, like as you said, emergency fund or unexpected cash flow issue. It'll get you through, because it's very easy to spend, but you've got to have that strategic vision for supporting your business. That's great advice. So what is your advice to other entrepreneurs?
Getting over your fear of starting is probably the biggest thing as an entrepreneur, because you have this idea, and like you might have an idea that someone else has done in the US or in Europe or whatever, but no one's done it in your environment. And I think, the fear of getting started with that thing in your environment is like, oh yeah, but there's bigger fish out there that are already doing it. But the thing with that is that, you can't always apply the same principles of what's happening in that nation to what's happening in your environment. So as an example, like let's say you've got a personal training app, and I'm just, so yes, there's a lot of people that have a personal training app. So you need to figure out what differentiates you, how it's going to be more beneficial to the people in your town or city or region than whatever else is currently out there. And if your idea is better, and if you can offer it at a more affordable price, because like people can't afford that much, then that's great. But then you need to know that, okay, and yeah, so I think overcoming your fear of starting is the first thing. Find out all you can about the thing you want to do, and make sure you set up stuff properly. I think those are the three key things, because once that ball gets rolling, and like tell people what you're doing, I think that's been another limiting factor on my side. It's being an introvert, I struggle to like share things. I'm like, oh, it's not important. It doesn't matter. So, this little thing is so insignificant. But then when I share, like, the fact that I got involved in a relationship with one of my clients, like in when I was like 6 years ago or 7 years ago. But like that's a problem. That's something that I don't share, but it's something that has really shaped my character, and has really transformed how I deal with things. I think sharing all of these challenges is really valuable. Yeah. And don't get involved with your clients. That's another thing.
No, it goes on. It can cause a few issues, can't it? So
Such a nightmare.
I think you're right with the fear of starting, because you've just got to start somewhere and not compare your first year with someone else's 20th year. And then knowing what your differentiation is and stepping into that, because really the way you do something is unique to you, and you're bringing yourself into that landscape, into that industry. So I suppose that's the unique part of it. What's been your greatest challenge? We talked about that. We talked about profitability. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
I suppose handling tough conversations. Like I had a friend that wanted to become a shareholder, and so I was open to it, and we had discussions. And when you look at value in your business, it's really hard because it's like your child. So you to separate those things, and then having a tough conversation about okay, well, this is how much I value it at, or it is valued at, and this is how much you want, and what are your expectations as a shareholder. And I didn't have those questions before, so then it was like, okay, this is what you can offer, this and this, I can offer you that, and and then that was fun, and then there was no fine, or there was fine print, but no details were shared in that. And then we ended up with, he ended up coming back like a year and a half later or something, and being like, well, I haven't received returns on my profit, or on returns on investment. And I'm like, well, it's a bit more complex than that, and it's not exactly like you added any value from your side, and then he expected a repayment. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know where to get that from, but I'll pay you back, and there was no legal thing set up to say you can't get that back type of thing. And so, I think tough conversations like that has been pivotal, because you learn from it, but how to manage them is so complicated, right? You only learn from going through it.
I suppose in something like that would be very difficult, but you'd want to have a contract or a memorandum of understanding, or something that expresses what the concerns are, or exit clauses. And I think that's the other thing with business, is you've got to really be on top of that, because you can spend a lot of time working in your business and then not working on your business. And working on your business are all these other layers, as you said, compliance with PAYE, I think you called it, or we call it superannuation, when you pay for your employer's retirement fund, agreements and understandings, and the legal side and the accounting side. The other things that take your time, but they take you out of your business. It's a challenge, isn't it?
If I just called my mentor and said, I have this situation, how do I deal with this? And I didn't even think I saw it as a good opportunity, and things like that. And so then you're like, oh, I know how to deal with this, it's fine. But I think that's the problem, is, being an entrepreneur, you're typically a go-getter, and then that cuts you off in the future, even though you don't realize it. So now going forwards, I always try and consult with someone that I know will know a bit more about me, or about this thing than me, so that I can progress it in the best way.
It's a bit like an insurance policy, isn't it? To protect yourself from what you don't know. And we're all in that boat, I think getting the best advice we can in situations is, invaluable. Jarryd, what's the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice I received was definitely the 80-20 principle, focusing on 80% of the quality done, and don't worry too much about the 20%. making something look nice. Obviously you want to have right grammar and stuff in a proposal or whatever, but don't, if it's going to jeopardize you having 8 hours of sleep and making sure you can do a solid presentation in the morning, rather go for the 8 hours of sleep and get that quality, focus. That's the best piece of advice I got.
Yeah, I love that. It's called the Pareto rule. Often we find that 80% of our income will come from 20% of our clients. Kind of like a universal law. And it's interesting. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be good enough. And I think you really touched on something there, Jarryd, because sacrificing sleep, which is an important part of health and well-being, not sacrificing your sleep to get the 100% if you can get it fine 80 and then wing the rest. So did you have a particular sleep routine that keeps you sharp?
Yeah, I used to be really bad with it. I used to be on I think 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and then often it was 3 to 4 hours. And so that's changed a lot. Now I think my sleep stats are averaging 6.5 to 7 hours, which I mean, that's 100% increase over the last 2 years. So, but I'll typically go to bed around 9, 10 o'clock and then wake up about between 4 and 5 o'clock. At the moment I'm busy doing a course. So that's then, I'll try to wake up at about 3 to get that out of the way before the day starts. But it's it's seasonal, and there's some seasons that require less sleep, and so I'm doing an Everesting running challenge in October, and that will probably be 18 to 24 hours of being on the feet. So that'll be a day where I don't get much sleep, but I'll probably sleep very well afterwards. So, yeah.
I can imagine. So you had a transformation with your sleep from 4 to 7 hours. That's amazing. And you must feel so different for it in your productivity.
Oh, yeah. It's mind-boggling. You don't realize how critical sleep is. And I mean, even at that time, I knew how important it was. But I just had so much pressure and things around me that was not good for me. And so I think that also negatively affects your sleep, because you're sitting up, or not necessarily sitting up worrying about it, but you keep yourself occupied enough to not deal with things. And then your mind goes and your body just doesn't rest. So, yeah.
Yeah, the cycle, isn't it? Jarryd, run us through a typical day. So what does a typical day look like?
So typically I'll wake up around 5 o'clock, and then usually I'll either do a swim set or a run set or something early morning. And then I often see clients early morning. So it's usually between 5:30 and 8 or 9 o'clock that I'll see clients for one-on-one sessions, either in person or via Zoom. And then between sort of 8, 9 o'clock and 2, 3 o'clock, my days are flexible to do admin. But typically I'll have lunch and breakfast, mostly lunch, and then most dinners with my wife. We don't usually have to do that separately. So that's awesome. And I'm very thankful for having that type of day. There's some days we have to just adjust, we have lots of meetings and things, but I try to keep my days more open so that if I do have a client with a crisis, we can jump on a call for 20 minutes or whatever. Whereas in the past, I never had that. So I would always just be playing catch up, and, that was frustrating. Then between 3 and 6 or 7 o'clock, I'll be doing typically group classes, but I do have some one-on-ones scattered in there. And then Friday afternoons, I'm actually usually open between 3 and 7. And so I like to try to get a heavy training day in there. So usually it'll be swim, bike, and run. But sometimes it just doesn't work, and I've got lots of admin to catch up from the week. So, then I get down and do that. And yeah, so, but those are typical days. And then get home around 7, 8 o'clock, dinner, and then go to bed. So yeah.
It sounds very structured, but also there's space there for flexibility, which is great. So you're not, spreading yourself too thin, which can often be the case as a business owner. So Jarryd, let's go through some questions so that the audience can learn more about you, the person. So these are one-word answers. Are you ready?
Perfect.
What makes you smile?
My wife.
How did you start your day today?
Today was personal training.
What's your favourite cuisine?
Italian.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be?
New Zealand.
Do you prefer to text or call?
Definitely call.
Do you play an instrument? Do you dance? Do you sing?
I play guitar.
What's your happy place?
The ocean.
What movie would you recommend?
The Secret Window with Johnny Depp. It's a good one.
Do you have a favourite song or artist?
As I Lay Dying, which is a metal band, but yeah, also good.
What's your favourite city?
Somerset West.
Do you prefer white wine, red wine, champagne, something else?
I don't drink, but I do. Well, I actually really enjoy milkshakes, but I'll enjoy a grape tizer or apple tizer. Yeah, so whatever I feel like on the day.
Sounds great. What's your secret pleasure?
Observing people.
What's your biggest strength?
Tenacity.
If you were a hashtag, what would you be?
Hashtag super me.
Gold or silver?
Gold.
If you could catch up with anyone, who would it be?
Ross Edgley.
What's your favourite meal? Breakfast, lunch or dinner?
Breakfast.
What inspires you?
Hearing how people face their fears, overcome challenges, and share their experiences.
What's your favourite time of the day?
Sunrise.
What was the best holiday you've ever had?
Definitely my honeymoon.
Sweet or savoury?
Sweet.
Jarryd, it's been a pleasure having you on the Business Class Collective podcast. Thank you for sharing your gems of wisdom, your journey and the inspiration. Really look forward to learning more about your journey as it progresses, and I hope you get into the corporate world, which is your dream.
I trust it'll happen sooner rather than later, but yeah, thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing, and it's really awesome. Even though I'm on the other side of the world, you're reaching people, and it's great. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jarryd. Thank you so much. Until next time. You've been listening to Business Class presented by Eugenia Panterhos, founder of Business Class Collective. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcast, subscribe, rate and review this podcast. Share the love and let your family and friends know too. You can follow Business Class Collective on Instagram and Facebook. Join me next time.